here's the thing. A lot of members of the left starting to realize that wokeness is destroying America, which is why of late you've seen some conversations about how you're not supposed to use the term wokeness, which is weird since they made it up. And so I'm fine with using the term wokeness. I intend on continuing to use that word. It is their fault that it became a poisonous word, not mine. It's because the idea is incredibly stupid.
Bold, right? Ben says if doctors are denying the biological differences between men and women, they're no longer practicing science. They're practicing activism. And that's when he drops his mic moment.
The problem with wokeness is that, bottom line, it promulgates lies. In particular, it promulgates 4 sets of lies. It promulgates lies about the nature of the United States. It promulgates lies about the nature of inequality. It promulgates lies about the nature of responsibility. And finally, it promulgates lies
Ben
about
delivers
the nature
the line
of truth
that's been
itself.
quoted everywhere. Anyone who tells you there's such a thing as a pregnant man isn't a doctor. They're an activist. Ouch. Agree or disagree, you have to admit, that hits hard. Then he turns to the ultimate irony of woke logic, where both speech and silence are considered violence.
It's got a nearly impenetrable code. The code is constantly changing and it's constantly moving. You have no idea what the standard is from day to day. But that code is brought to you by a priestly caste of really intelligent and woke people who will be able to absolve you of sin so long as you listen to everything they say.
But
there is an
beneath the
intermediary.
humor, Ben's message gets deep. He says wokeness has become a substitute religion, a way for people to fill the God-shaped hole left by the decline of faith. For many, it's not about justice anymore. It's about virtue signaling, performative morality, and dividing the world into believers and heretics. Wokeness, he says, isn't just an ideology. It's a faith without forgiveness. So the question is, does Ben Shapiro have a point? Or is he just stirring the pot for clicks and controversy? Let me know what you think in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more honest conversations. Because whether you agree or not, one thing's for sure. The battle over wokeness is far from over.
It's got sacrificial rights, right? People who are bad, who do not mouth the proper catechism are immediately destroyed. And there's no forgiveness. And there's no forgiveness.
Ben points out how ridiculous that is. If you speak, you're violent. If you stay silent, that's violence too. So what's left? He jokes maybe America's new form of communication should be miming or tap dancing, since apparently talking is canceled.
Ford has decided for Pride Month, they're going to release a rainbow Ford F-150. Again, rainbow wheel rolling over a human face forever. And Ford's F-150 brand is supposed to be the manly men who are like picking up lumber.
The activists tried to deflect, accusing Ben of using a logical fallacy. But Ben argues that's exactly the tactic. Dodge, deflect, and discredit. He says that instead of answering tough questions, the woke crowd attacks the questioner. And he doesn't stop there. He calls out the medical establishment, accusing politically driven doctors of bending science to fit ideology.
Between you and wokeness. The intermediary is fairly obvious, right? It is all the members of the New York Times editorial board. It is all the people who tweet angrily on Twitter. It is your late night host, but even they have intermediaries. They have to call in some of their black friends, as we saw on all of the late night TV shows last night, in order to interpret blackness for them so that they can absolve themselves of their own.
Then comes one of the hottest topics in the entire culture war, gender. Ben asks, if gender isn't connected to biological sex, then what's the point? He references his friend Matt Walsh's famous question, what is a woman? Seems simple, right? But when Ben asked a trans activist that question, the answer
religion
was
of wokeness
silence.
Suggests a bunch of conflicting things, and the only way to avoid the conflict is to just listen and repeat. Listen and believe. Right? That's the basic idea here.
According to Ben, cancel culture is the enforcement arm of wokeness. If you don't repeat the script word for word, you're done. There's no forgiveness, no nuance, and no second chances. Ben calls this the death of grace and growth. A world where you're judged not by your intentions, but by a single mistake, no matter how long ago it happened.
Sex and gender are two different concepts, but gender is tied to biology. So one of the big problems that you see in sort of the argument in favor of trans rights is this notion that gender and sex are completely separable. They're not completely separable. If they are completely separable, then this means that identifying people by their subjective gender really has no relevance as to whether they are a male or a female.
Here's where Ben really unloads. He says the true gatekeepers of wokeness aren't just activists. They're the media, Twitter mobs, and late-night hosts. They decide what's acceptable, what's offensive, and who gets canceled next. Ben even jokes that some of them have to call up their black friends just to figure out what's okay to say, all to keep their woke badges intact.
Here's my question. It's an argument that my friend Matt Walsh likes to make. What is a woman? Define what a woman is without reference to the word woman, please.
Ben's point isn't about the truck, it's about motives. Are these brands truly standing for something? Or are they just chasing clout to stay relevant and avoid backlash? He argues that many of them are pretending to care. It's about optics, not principles.
Then you actually just disagree with medical consensus within the Western nation.
Yes, I disagree with the false medical consensus driven by politically driven, quote-unquote, doctors. If any doctor denies to me that there is a dichotomy between male and female, a sexual dichotomy between male and female, they are ignorant, and they are letting their politics get in the way of their science.
And here's where it starts sounding like a dystopian novel. Ben says the woke mob shows no mercy to those who dare to step out of line. He argues that the rules aren't even written. They're made up on the spot by whoever's in charge that day. Break one, you'll pay the price. And it's not just activists. Even big corporations are joining the movement. Take Ford, for example, launching a rainbow F-150 for Pride Month.
Who suggests to you that there is such a thing, for example, as a pregnant male is not a doctor, they are an activist.
Ben takes it further, painting a picture of a woke priesthood. He says these are the so-called intellectual elites who decide who's pure and who's guilty, who gets forgiveness and who gets cancelled. It's a clever metaphor, but a dark one too. Because if the rules are always shifting, how can anyone possibly keep up? Ben warns, that's how you get chaos, and that's how a culture loses its sense of truth.
We've heard that speech is violence. So if I say something you don't like, I have enacted violence upon you. I used to hear this when I would speak at college campuses. People were literally chanting speech is violence when I spoke at UC Berkeley. Also, silence is violence. So if you don't speak, that's a form of violence. So if you do speak and we don't like it, that's violence. If you don't speak, that is also a form of violence.
Now here's where it gets juicy. Ben says wokeness isn't just an ideology, it's practically a religion. Think about it. It's got its own moral code, its own high priests, and a constantly changing rulebook. One day you're woke enough, the next day, you've broken a new rule you didn't even know existed. It's like playing a game where the rules change every time you start winning. Alright, here's the deal. Wokeness is everywhere. You can't scroll through Twitter, binge a Netflix show, or even grab a cup of coffee without someone bringing it up. And you know who's not afraid to call it out? Ben Shapiro. Love him or hate him, Ben's been on a mission to tear down woke culture, brick by brick, and he's not holding back. Let's talk about the word woke. Funny enough, the same people who invented the term now say, don't use it. Ben's not buying that. He says, you made it a thing, not me, why stop using it now just because it's turned toxic? According to him, wokeness is wrecking America, and judging by how viral his message goes online, a lot of people agree. Alright, here's the deal, wokeness is everywhere. You can't scroll through Twitter, binge a Netflix show, or even grab a cup of coffee without someone bringing it up. And you know who's not afraid to call it out? Ben Shapiro. Love him or hate him, Ben's been on a mission to tear down woke culture, brick by brick, and he's not holding back. Let's talk about the word woke. Funny enough, the same people who invented the term now say, don't use it. Ben's not buying that. He says, you made it a thing, not me, why stop using it now just because it's turned toxic? According to him, wokeness is wrecking America, and judging by how viral his message goes online, a lot of people agree.